iOS 26 has been out for 2 months in the form of beta. And whilst I'm not running the beta, I am going to talk about what are my favorite features that are in iOS 26 throughout the course of the betas. And I'm also going to share some things on the iPad as well. Hi, everyone. Mr. Hawkins with Hawkins Tech. And this is iOS 26, my favorite features 2 months later. Now, just to show you, I'm on iOS 18.6, which is the latest update, public update from Apple. But we've gotten some really great features with iOS 26. And obviously, one of the biggest changes was liquid glass. And this has been something that has gotten many changes throughout the betas. I haven't used it in person yet because I'm not installed on the beta, as I'm not putting it on my daily driver, which is my iPhone 12, the device that I'm recording this video on. But we have some really great looks in iOS 26, like this new clear look for icons. Although it's somewhat easy to sort of create that in iOS 18, you have to just go to tinted and you have to go to like a light gray option and then make the color really light. I don't know if it's as accurate as what's on iOS 26, but that's sort of how you mimic the clear look on iOS 18. If it doesn't look completely accurate, leave a comment down below. But this is how you sort of mimic that clear look. It's sort of like a black and white look for icons. At least that's how it is in dark mode. So we have a clear look for icons. That's one of my favorite features. Liquid glass is also on the control center. When you pull down the control center, you can see liquid glass sort of have different looks throughout the course of the betas. I believe I have multiple screenshots from every beta video that I watched. See if I can find some more regarding the control center. Liquid glass has seen a number of updates. And liquid glass essentially allows you can see through sort of things that you're looking up. Like, for instance, in Apple Music, you can see through, or you can kind of see through the search bar. Although it's a little bit less reflective. I believe this is, I don't remember which beta this is from. This is beta 4. So beta 3, probably the glass was less reflective. That's more updates to mention. We also got new wallpapers in the third beta. We got a shadow sky, which is the default. That's been there for a while, but they gave it a name. We also got, I believe this one is Halo, and we got Dusk. Those are new wallpapers and a dynamic wallpaper as well. With the most recently released beta, which came out about a couple hours ago, we got new ringtones, and that's beta 6. We got new ringtones. The Reflection number 1, which is the default ringtone. Then we have 6 more, which is followed by, I believe this is called Buoyant. We have Dreamer, Pond, Pop, Reflected, and Surge. So those are 6 new individual ringtones in iOS 26. We even have another one that Apple calls Little Bird, which is another ringtone. They've made several updates to Liquid Glass. They've even made updates to how notifications are presented with the glass effect. Taking a look at this, you can somewhat see through it, but at the same time, it's frosted glass. Even the quick actions for the camera and flashlight are covered in the glass effect. In Beta 4, they added the ability to see your notifications more easier. How it dims your wallpaper, it makes it darker to read notifications with a glass effect. Whereas in the prior beta, which was before Beta 4, Beta 3, it did not. It's some slight updates here and there. We got a new Games app, Preview app. We also have backgrounds within iMessage. We have an updated look for Safari where the tab bar is floating. This is something that I've wanted since iOS 15, so I'm just glad it's here. Well, I really wanted it back since Apple removed it in the iOS 15 betas when I seen pictures of those on YouTube. Or videos rather. FaceTime gets updates. I really like that the contacts in FaceTime are more squared. Obviously, I don't know how to add the blur effect to some of my parts of my video, so I won't go into my contacts and show you, and I'm not on iOS 26, so I couldn't show it anyway. But they've updated some things. They made the contacts more squared in iOS 26 within FaceTime. Now, I also want to talk about the iPad because while we get the same features, Liquid Glass on the iPad, we get it in notifications and different things throughout. Scrolling through our Apple Music, photos, get some nice updates. There are some things I want to cover on iPad, but really quickly, I just show you the Photos app here. I'll show you guys the Photos app. I have so many screenshots. Photos has an update. While you still have your different options at the bottom, they've even moved the search icon to the bottom. This blue button, even though the wording on here is a little blurry, I believe that blue button could be for your main part of the photos, which is called the library. And then the other part is for when you scroll up. I think that might either be called albums or collections. But there are some features on the iPad that I want to mention as well. When we talk about the iPad, there are features that I want to mention as well. And while we get sort of the same features on the iPad regarding Liquid Glass with the control center, scrolling in places like, for instance, if we're in Apple Music, but you clearly won't see this because I'm not even on the betas. iPad gets features that are worth noting as well. What we get on the iPad that I'm really interested in is we get new multitasking. And when I say new, I'm not talking about an update to how we have split screen. I mean, we get a complete, built from the ground up, kind of like Stage Manager for older iPads, new multitasking. And what I mean is we have windowing on the iPad. I've covered this in many videos. I really have a strong excitement for this because I've always wanted to try out Stage Manager, but I don't have an iPad that supports it. As the iPad Pro from 2018 supports it, even though it has the same dimensions as the iPad Air, 4 gigs of RAM, 64 gigs of storage. Only difference is it has an A12X chip compared to a newer A14, which is in the iPad Air. Even though that difference is newer on the Air, the Pro still gets Stage Manager because the A12 is like a mini M1, while the A14 is just not powerful enough. But we get it on every iPad now. Now with iPadOS 26, I no longer have to worry about that, because now Stage Manager is coming to my iPad. And you can see it here. We have windowing on the iPad. And that's not the only thing you see. If I zoom in here, we have traffic light buttons. If you've ever used a MacBook before or seen one, you know what I'm talking about. We have the red, yellow, and green buttons. I may not own a MacBook, because if I did, I would have reviewed it on the channel, but I have seen and used a MacBook before. So I've seen these buttons, the red, yellow, and green buttons. And I've done research many times on what those were for. The red is to close, the yellow is to minimize, and the green is to make the app full screen and half screen. Those buttons are now on the iPad because you can make those full screen and half screen. And that's not the only thing. You get a slider. You get a slider. Once you go in full screen, those 3 buttons disappear. The only way to drag and drop or resize your windows is a slider in the bottom right corner of the iPad. Now with a single app, you don't really see, they're a little harder to see now, but those buttons are kind of shrunken. But if you take a look here in the bottom right corner, you have a slider. That's because when you go into full screen, those buttons disappear from the videos I watched. And the only way to get out of that is to use that slider. And then those buttons are going to come back. So you can either use the slider when you're in windowed mode or use the buttons. But once you're in full screen, those buttons are gone. And you have to slide it using the slider in the bottom right corner to get those buttons back to. So those traffic light buttons on the iPad or the Mac are used to close, minimize, and full and half screen the app. But once you're in full screen, they're gone. So the only way to get back to those again is you have to use the slider here to slide up. And those buttons, along with the windowing system, it's available for every single iPad. All of them. And we kind of get some of the same features with liquid glass, and you can see it again here. The windowing system. We get this on basically every iPad. As long as it's running iPadOS 26, you will see this on all of the iPads, including the iPad mini and the oldest supported iPad, the iPad 8th generation. I have an iPad Air from 2020, and even this device is going to get the new windowing system, and it's also going to get Stage Manager. Stage Manager is now available on all iPads as well, because I've seen it on every iPad on iPadOS 26 that was on the beta from the YouTube videos. The older iPads that wouldn't support it. It's available, but with limitations. Here is what you should know. On older iPads, ones that have less RAM like my Air, 4 gigabytes of RAM, once it uses the RAM to manage the apps, it will then use some of the temporary storage. So it will be temporary, but expect some of your storage to be taken while you're using this. That's because older devices with less RAM needs to do this so it can run efficiently and apps may be suspended in the background. But that's totally okay as long as I get the new feature, which is windowing. Because let's be honest, split screen and multitasking, it was revolutionary when it first came out, but now it just feels very, very limiting on what it can do. And I feel like the iPad can do more than this. I like to see windowed apps. I like the look of windowed apps. How it essentially puts your app window behind your wallpaper, kind of like what you see on a computer. I've always liked that. And I've always wanted to see that on a mobile device. Now I will on my iPad Air because every iPad that runs iPadOS 26 will support this feature. So me personally, those are all of my favorite features in iPadOS and iOS 26. On the iPhone, I like the updates with Liquid Glass, how we go into different apps, and you won't notice this on iOS 18, but if I were to be on iOS 26, you would notice this. You would be able to somewhat see through this menu bar. It would be sort of a frosted to liquid clear glass type of look. That's on all Apple apps. I'm sure third-party apps are going to bring it to their apps as well. Like we may see it on YouTube when scrolling in different places. I'm sure Google may incorporate it as well. It may take some time, but we will see third-party developers hopefully incorporate Liquid Glass into their apps as well. So those are my favorite features of iOS 26, even still 2 months later. The only reason why I've yet to install the beta, despite how tempted I am to put it on my iPad because of the new windowing system and the what feels like Stage Manager now for all devices, is simply because while I'm very excited for the feature, every year I want to install a new iOS beta when it comes out. But the thing is, I don't have a device to run stable on iOS 18. Betas are filled with lots of bugs, and there is just no way to downgrade other than having to restore your device. And if you don't have a backup, you wouldn't be able to get back into your device. You would have to start from scratch. And if you don't have a computer, you basically can't even restore it and set it up again. You basically would have to bring it into Apple, and the whole process is just not worth it if you don't have another device that you can put it on. That's the only reason why I haven't installed the beta, as tempted as I am. But once it releases to the general public, you can be absolutely sure that you're going to see me install iOS 26, and I'm going to have tons of videos to make of this brand new update, including talking about the iPhone 17s as well. My name is Mr. Hawkins with Hawkins Tech, and I will continue to make more videos on this software, iOS 26, when we get more updates, which we are expected to get beta 7 sometime next week, the week of August 18th. We just got beta 6 today, which I made a video about it. I wasn't installed on that beta. I'm currently on iOS 18, but I still made a video with those pictures and screenshots talking about what's new in the update. I'm Mr. Hawkins with Hawkins Tech, and if you are enjoying iOS 26, if you do have the beta installed, whether it's on your main device, which I wouldn't recommend, but if you have a computer to downgrade, that would be great. So then you probably could downgrade if you need to, or if it's on a side device. Comment down below, what do you think of iOS 26? And if you have a favorite feature, comment that on this video. Once I update to iOS 26 next month, you can expect a lot of videos from me. And before iOS 26 releases, like the Sunday before, I will have a video on preparing to update. I may have to name it differently, as I had a video back in June before it went in beta called iOS 26 Prepare to Update. So I may have to name it iOS 26 releases, the next day, and title Prepare to Update after that. Or I may think of something different. But nonetheless, I will still have some kind of a video. I probably won't do a separate video for iPad. I'll just merge the two together. Or maybe I will or won't. We'll have to see when we get to that point. But I will keep you guys up to date on iOS 26. I'm Mr. Hawkins with Hawkins Tech, and we are getting close. We are getting very close to 300 subscribers. If I go into YouTube Studio quickly, at the recording of this video, I have 296 subscribers. So if you like the content that I post on YouTube, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. My name is Mr. Hawkins with Hawkins Tech, and I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.